TV presenter and entertainment reporter Ellen Coughland.
What struck me about what I've read about it, she's only got fame because she's married to Prince Harry.
I would disagree that she's only got fame because she's married to Prince Harry.
Oh, come on. I'd never heard of her till she started dating Prince Harry. I'd never heard of Suits either.
But that's you. I was a massive Suits fan, and so were millions of other people around the world. Yes, they were. Yeah, believe it or not, we still watch Suits on repeat now. It's a very good show, actually. Maybe you should tune in. It's very good. But she definitely didn't become famous because of Prince Harry. She was famous in her own right. She was also a UN ambassador for women's rights around the world. So she was a philanthropist before she met him. She was actually the perfect princess, and actually the royal family fumbled a small bit there by not keeping her in the royal fold, because she would have done incredible things with them. But I'm sure she has a lot more freedom now on the outside.
Ellen, can I just say that is a little bit fake, isn't it? It's not real. It's not even her own kitchen. Yeah. So it follows on from all the things she has done in the past, where maybe what we're seeing and what she's saying isn't necessarily reality.
Well, this is actually standard for cooking shows. Nobody cooks in their own kitchen. It's a set. So if she was to cook in her own kitchen, she'd have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old running around her feet. It would be chaos. Harry'd be coming in to make his breakfast in the morning. So I don't think anybody expected her to actually be cooking and making a Netflix series in her own kitchen. That is just complete industry standard to do it that way. It's not fake at all. I can understand why the British press see it as inauthentic, because it is very Americanized television. So it's not something that we're used to seeing. It's curated, but it's made to be like that. The production is like that. If you've watched any sort of Martha Stewart cooking shows, they are very curated. That's just the way they are. But nobody's forcing anybody to watch the series. She's put it out there for people who like her, fans. And if you go by the last...
In Ellen Coughland's hands became a silencer aimed directly at the roaring machinery of the British press. In just a few sentences, she managed to unravel months of relentless criticism and expose the hollow core of the media's campaign against Meghan Sussex. Ellen pointed out what should have been obvious, but what the press has been desperately trying to bury. Those negative reviews splashed across the newspapers and websites are just that: opinions. They are not facts. They are not definitive judgments. They are not the voice of the public. They are the scribbles of columnists with agendas. And then came the figure that cut through the noise like thunder: 5.3 million views. 5.3 million people chose to watch Meghan's show With Love, Meghan. That number, Ellen reminded everyone, places the show in the top 5% of Netflix programs of 2025. And in one stroke, the carefully manufactured illusion collapsed, because you cannot argue with the evidence of millions. That wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a mic drop of historic proportions. It was Ellen handing the press their own obituary for this latest narrative. What makes this even more remarkable is the timing. For years, Meghan has been the preferred target of a section of the British press that thrives on outrage. They have built entire careers, entire business models on tearing her down. From the moment she joined the royal family, she was painted as difficult, demanding, out of place, a disruptor in the worst possible sense. When she left with Prince Harry, the headlines grew even more vicious: ungrateful, disloyal, selfish. And every time she created something, a podcast, a charity cookbook, a speech, a documentary, the cycle was the same. The reviews were framed as damning, the pundits smirked, the tabloids declared her finished. And yet, time after time, the public quietly but powerfully pushed back with their actions. They tuned in, they listened, they read, they donated, and they watched. Ellen's tweet didn't just defend Meghan's Netflix series, it laid bare the hypocrisy of this whole cycle. If Meghan were truly the failure the press claims she is, with love, Meghan would have died in obscurity. Instead, it soared, it thrived, it succeeded on a global scale. And here's the beauty of Ellen's point. She didn't use flowery language, she didn't appeal to sentiment, she used hard data. Numbers. 5.3 million views, the top 5% of Netflix shows. This is the kind of evidence that makes all those pompous reviews look not just biased, but laughably out of touch. It's one thing to say you don't like a show. That's personal taste. But to insist that the show is a failure when the global numbers prove otherwise, that's not criticism. That's propaganda. Ellen threw a wrench into the propaganda machine by reminding the world that the real measure of success is not whether the Daily Mail approves, but whether the audience shows up. And the audience did, in their millions. This is where the conversation becomes about more than Meghan. It becomes about who controls the narrative of success and failure. The British press has long styled itself as the gatekeeper. They want to decide whose career survives and whose career dies. They want to be the arbiters of what the public should find worthy. But ratings, raw, undeniable ratings, bypass those gatekeepers. Ratings go directly from audience to platform. No middleman, no spin. Ellen's intervention highlighted this beautifully. The press wanted to bury with love Meghan, but the ratings resurrected it 10 times over. That disconnect is exactly why the press is panicking. They are losing their grip on the narrative. And let us remember, this isn't new. Meghan has been here before. When Archetypes debuted, the press called it a flop. They said Meghan had nothing new to say, that she was boring, irrelevant, repetitive. But within days, Archetypes shot to #1 on Spotify in multiple countries. In the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Canada, it dominated. And the numbers showed something else. Meghan was bringing in audiences that had never before tuned into podcasts. She was expanding the medium. The same thing happened with the Sussexes' Netflix documentary series. Critics said it was self-indulgent, a snooze, predictable. And yet, it became one of the most watched documentaries on the platform, pulling in over 80 million viewing hours within its first week. Again, the numbers humiliated the critics. And now, with Love Meghan, the cycle is repeating itself. The critics sneer, the numbers roar. Ellen simply forced everyone to pay attention to that roar. What's important to note is how Ellen framed those reviews as opinion pieces. That word choice is, honestly, just critical. Because too often the press dresses up opinion as fact. A columnist will write, "Meghan's show is a disaster," and it gets reported and retweeted as though it's a universally accepted truth. But Ellen reminded people to strip away the pretense. These reviews are not facts. They are reflections of the writer's biases, grudges, and, well, sometimes outright malice. And Meghan has been subjected to more of that malice than perhaps any other public figure in recent memory. Ellen's clarity forced a distinction that should never have been lost. You are entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to manufacture reality. And let's not pretend we don't know why the press does this. Meghan terrifies them. She terrifies them because she doesn't need them. In the old days, a celebrity or a royal figure would have to play the game. They would need the newspapers to cover them favorably or risk fading into obscurity. But Meghan and Harry broke that cycle. They can go directly to Netflix, to Spotify, to Instagram, to their foundation, and reach millions instantly. They don't need to charm the press barons at Christmas parties or feed tidbits to royal correspondents in exchange for good coverage. They bypass the system entirely, and that terrifies the gatekeepers. That's why the reviews are so vicious. It's not just about the content of With Love, Meghan. It's about the threat Meghan poses to the entire power structure of the British press. And here's the irony that makes this story almost poetic. The press, in trying to destroy Meghan's reputation, only feeds into her success. Negative headlines create curiosity. People who might not have watched With Love, Meghan otherwise click out of intrigue. They want to see what the fuss is about. And many of them, once they actually watch, realize that the show is heartfelt, engaging, and authentic. In trying to bury her, the press hands her free advertising. Ellen's tweet essentially told the press, "You are your own worst enemy. Your attempts to sabotage Meghan are backfiring spectacularly." As the second season of With Love, Meghan launches, Ellen's words take on even more weight. Because the cycle is predictable now. The press will churn out the same sneering lines, the same tired criticisms. But the public now knows better. They remember what happened the first time. They remember that the critics declared Meghan finished, only for her to end up in the top 5% of Netflix shows. That memory weakens the sting of every new attack. It builds resilience, both in Meghan's supporters and in neutral viewers who are tired of being manipulated. Ellen's tweet planted a seed of doubt in the press's credibility, and that seed is growing. Ellen Coughland may not have thought of herself as delivering a knockout blow, but make no mistake, that's exactly what she did. She cut through the smog of slander with one piercing truth: numbers don't lie. She exposed the fragility of the press's narrative, and in doing so, she gave Meghan something priceless: validation. Validation not from critics, not from columnists, but from the millions of viewers who tuned in, who proved with their time and attention that Meghan's voice matters. And in the end, that's the story that will endure. Not the sneers of the tabloids, but the success of a woman who refused to be silenced, and the audiences who refused to let her be erased. Because sometimes it only takes one clear voice to cut through the noise. Ellen was that voice, and her reminder will echo long after the headlines fade. Meghan Sussex is not being defined by her critics. She is being defined by her audience. And that audience, millions strong, is growing louder, prouder, and more unshakable with every project she brings to life.